The last 2 months, God covered us to stay in a beautiful Airbnb apartment that was overlooking the river in downtown Chicago. We had Christmas there, and we even put up a beautiful tree with twinkling lights. Although the place was incredibly gorgeous, it was a low time in the way that there was not much extra left to cover bills and food. By the time the 2 months were over, I was weighing in heavy with so many desperate bills and needs. The weight of my needs was getting unbearable, and God took me through a teaching of a fishing prayer to see a miracle release. As God was taking me through the teaching of this unique way of fishing and prayer, my daughter and I were watching fishing shows on a television. It was less than a week before we had to check out of the room, and the weight of my needs were overwhelming. There were many things that God showed me that was blocking the answer to my prayers, and I'm going to share all of that with you, but it's going to go into a small book, which I'll be putting together very soon. God showed me that He wanted me to put it in a book because it is more than what can be covered in just a blog post or a YouTube. There are so many treasures that God caused me to haul in from the fishing encounter with Him. With only a few days before the checkout and having zero money to do anything, I was feeling very weighed down with needs. We needed food desperately. We needed money to go somewhere. And then there were some very urgent bills. My phone bill was over $700 because it was so behind, and I was on the verge of getting it shut off. And that would have been my worst nightmare because of traveling out of state and because the phone covers my other daughter out of state as well. And then we have a storage unit in Michigan where we store my daughter's belongings, and they were sending me threats about closing it and auctioning her things away. I was under so much pressure, I felt like I weighed 2,000 pounds. I had been doing all that God had showed me to do with the fishing technique, but nothing was happening yet. Then God revealed to me the missing link that I needed to pray through, and I did. Within seconds of connecting this final part of the prayer, I received a huge instant blessing to cover our stay and those gigantic bills and pay for food. I felt like I lost 2,000 pounds in the flicker of an eye, and suddenly I was feeling the pure bliss of being covered once again. I gave back to God first the amount He directed. I paid my storage and my phone bills completely. We got plenty of food, and then I was able to pay for our parking in a hotel for 2 weeks, where God led me to go. You would think that after such an amazing encounter of fishing with God, that I would be completely turned around, but not quite. Right when we got to the new hotel room a week ago, the first thing I did was entertain fearful negative thoughts against my promises from God. Then one night God showed me that He was giving me something like a spiritual emergency birth control pill and a pregnancy test spiritually to ensure that I did not conceive something bad from the negative thinking. So I went from a test to a test. I went from one place to another place without even having time to share with anyone the wonderful encounter that I had of fishing with God. Whenever we engage in negative, fearful thinking, even by allowing those thoughts in, we risk conceiving what they are. Because faith works both ways. We can put faith in our fears, or we can put faith in our hopes. We get to choose what we will see come into our life, a blessing or a curse. The thoughts that you entertain can be very dangerous. And God has shown me that by putting my feelings and fears over His promise, that I had been indulging in pride. Because putting His promise over our fears and even how we feel is how we humble ourselves under His words. I went from one test of faith to another very quickly. I went from being buried under needs and having dramatic weight loss to being heavy with needs all over again. We have 1 week left at our stay, and I am in a test of what report will I believe. God promised I already have a rescue for what is next, and He has given me many, many detailed promises to go with it. To entertain fearful thoughts even after He has given me those promises is an act of ugly pride, and I have had to be corrected by Him more than one time. So I had to turn myself around and repent by changing my thoughts and attitude. I had to denounce the fearful outcomes and put my fears under His promise and place His promises at the top of my attention and focus. Each person must account for what they allow into their situation through thoughts and attention. We can say that we believe in God's promises, but if we are spending all day thinking about our worries and needs, then we have put those negative things first. When a woman becomes pregnant, anyone can be the father. It depends on who she opens up to and who she invites into her intimate space. I'm so thankful that God knows and sees what I did not, and that He rescued me from the attack against His promises. Many of the painful things I have endured in the past, like my car being taken or having to sit in a parking lot crying for God to save us with room support, was because of the thoughts I was letting in. I had opened myself up to conceive bad situations. That is why God has given me the promise. The opposite of your fears is a promise, and why He always tells me to only think about what I hope for, because hope is attached to promise. It is the anchor for our thoughts. I need a promise from God to feel the stability in such unstable feeling times. Like being in downtown Chicago in a hotel and trusting His promise of support. His promises are the strength and power that rescue us time and time again on this treacherous journey. His promises are my rock and my salvation from plans of the enemy. Having a promise is like having endless wealth in my pockets at all times. His words are my life, and they are also attached to hope as a lifeline. Thinking about what you hope for is a lifeline that will rescue you when you are swept away and lost at sea. These love letters of promise from God have rescued me, and that is why they were first made. It was a way for me to easily consume His promises when I was faced with life and death situations, because it takes a complete commitment to believe them and to only allow hopeful thoughts and not the fears or doubts. The love letters have saved my life more times than I can count. They work in a powerful way, but we must also do the work to exercise our thoughts with faith. It is far from easy, but the rewards are tremendous. Faith is the most powerful force. It is all about what we believe. If we believe in something bad, then our faith in that belief will make the bad thing emerge as solid and tangible. We reap whatever seeds we sow, and that can be bad or good. Each person is responsible for their own garden. However, if we put faith in our hopes, then our hopes will come true. And those hopes in God's goodness will not disappoint us or put us to shame. It is a constant faith exercise to keep the right thoughts, the right perspective and attitude, and to stay free from the pain of past disappointments and pain. Many times the pain that I went through over and over was because I still had an attachment to those memories. When we are attached to the bad memories, then they will continue to come back into our experience. It is like a chain connected by links. We have to let the past go in order to be free. It is crucial to start with fresh faith and an openness to God to be able to do something new. We must have hope that things are new now, because our fears are coming from a hurt from the past. So when we let that finally go, then the fears go too. This is a new time, and anything wonderful can happen at any moment. To have hope is to see things in a new way. When we put faith in those hopes, then we enter a place of confident expectancy. When we know without a doubt that our hopes will happen, that is the power of faith, and it can go both ways. So instead of writing the fishing book and sharing my wonderful encounter of fishing with God, I had to go right into a spiritual rescue of destroying the conception of fear and a faith test to prove that I was in the clear of those bad things taking place. God always gives us a choice, and one of the biggest moments of breakthrough I had was when I stopped having a victim mindset. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" I was able to see it was because of the thoughts of fear I had entertained. I was able to repent and change my thoughts and experience the life-saving love of God to rescue me from the bitter fruit of bad thoughts that I was consuming. On a side note, I am overwhelmed with excitement to share the Fishing with God story with you. It is so full of rich, wonderful sweetness. There is so much that I have to share. And this very unique way of fishing for prayer that God showed me to do, the rewards were instant. I'm so thankful that God saved us and brought us to a comfortable room for another week. Hopefully the time can expand so we can wait out the freezing cold weather that has been hanging out in Chicago. I'm sharing a few pictures of the room on my website at diamondsfromthedust.com. It is in this post under the blog. You can find those pictures there, and also under the tab of our journey or our story, I have a slideshow of so many pictures and places we've been to. Just a few of them. I don't even think I could pull up. There's been so many altogether. I love you, and I will be sharing more very soon and hopefully introducing my sweet fishing book with you. This is Dannette from diamondsfromthedust.com.